Welcome to Tech Talk with WSU Tech, where we dive into all things WSU Tech and highlight the voices within our college community. I'm Dr. Sheree Utash, and today we have the honor of chatting with Jennifer Roe. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
We always like to kick this off with having you introduce yourself and tell everybody about what you do and how you, in your role prior and today, contribute to the mission of WSU Tech.
Yeah,
so welcome.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I'm Jennifer Roe. I'm the program manager at Mike Rowe Works Foundation, which really is resulting in managing the Work Ethic Scholarship Program as well as the Work Ethic Curriculum nationally. Prior to going to the Mike Rowe Works Foundation a little over a year ago, I had the privilege of working at WSU Tech for about 8 years.
Mm-hmm. All right. That's where we met.
Yeah.
That's how this all started. So let's just go back in time just a little bit. And let's talk about when this first started, what drew you to the Mike Rowe work ethics?
Well, it's always a fun story to tell. When I first started at the college, I worked under a grant program, and we had been teaching work ethic curriculum that I just had to be a part of. Mm-hmm. I wholeheartedly believed in teaching the skills. I really thought that anybody could do them. So I did a lot of asking if I could be a part of what we were currently doing. Had the opportunity to teach that curriculum that we were doing then, and spending a lot of time with students really understanding what worked and what didn't work, and really got to a point where I felt like we could do it better, or we could find something better that would really help students just connect and engage and be excited about work ethic. And right about the time we were in those discussions, we had a great partner opportunity that said, hey, I think we've got somebody that you need to talk to that has some shared interest in work ethic training, which you guys were doing, and we had an interest in looking at alternative solutions. And so we had the opportunity to sit at the table with the Mike Rowe Works Foundation and talk about what a work ethic curriculum that would be engaging and fun, but also have a really real, raw, informal conversation with students about expectations in the workplace, and that really set the project in motion.
You know, when I think back on that, it all started with the sweat pledge.
Yeah.
And it started with just trying to, I'm going to do a little history myself.
Sure.
When I first got to WSU Tech, which was WATC then, when I first got there and I went out to industry, every industry, I don't care what it was, said, technically proficient, don't know how to work. And I was just like, I don't know what that means. Yeah. I don't know what it means. What does this mean? Yeah. And I kept thinking about it. And then I went into the phase of kind of a denial phase and said, well, why should we have to do this? You know, why isn't this being taught someplace else? And why would we have to do this? And then I kind of came full circle to the fact that if we weren't going to do it, who was?
Right.
That's when I found the sweat pledge, not knowing anything about Mike Rowe, frankly, or the work ethics or any of that. And we started integrating that into the technical classes in all these different programs where we would just say, these are 12 sweat pledge, this is this, and will you sign your name that you will integrate this into your world of education, training, work. Fast forward, in a very strange meeting with a lot of different people, it came up something about the sweat pledge, and I just simply said, we use the sweat pledge,
right?
Which started this whole thing.
It did. It was really a great introduction because we had familiarity with what the tenets of the sweat pledge really were, and have exposed students who really were on board from the get-go, right? They read the statements of the sweat pledge, they believed in it, had seen it at in their own work experience, whether that be in the lab setting that mimics work so much, or in their own personal experiences in the workplace, which made it kind of an obvious choice, right? Because if they're already connecting to the statements themselves, why wouldn't you just grow upon that, right? And make it meaningful to them to have structured activities around it and really get to a place where they could use it that day.
So you've been a part of this evolution, I always call it. I think it's been 6, 7, 8 times revised, maybe 10, I don't know, over the years.
Yeah.
But where we're at today, tell me, fast forward to where we are today and why this is so important, and talk about what your role now is with WSU Tech as you work for Mike Rowe Works Foundation, which I'm super proud of you.
Sure. Thank you. Kind of back to what you said was you go out to industry and they're all saying they don't know how to work, right? And it really is an opportunity for students to really prepare, whether they're high school students or college students, prepare for all expectations of work, not just the technical based skills. Then they have a real idea of what's going to be expected when they arrive and they're prepared. Back when we started doing this, even with the sweat pledge itself and presenting the statements, there's something kind of real and raw about the way that Mike approaches the statements that allows students to take the formality out of the question, right? Like out of the equation, and gives them kind of an opportunity to really explore what that means for themselves. What's good about that is that it's addressing what workforce is asking for, and it's not just isolated to Wichita, right? It's really across the nation. The same questions being asked from industry, the same expectations across the board, across many industries, which, now in my role at Mike Rowe Works allows me to, talk about the experiences that really started at WSU Tech, but help them integrate it in a way that makes the most sense for the students they serve. What's good about it today, and really the Sweat Pledge has always been, provides an opportunity to have lots of different conversations, right? That meet different industries where they are and what their expectations are, although so many are similar in nature. But when I got to spend time in the classroom and really understand how students engage with this, how they connect with it, how they have fun, learning about something that can very easily not be very fun. It really has helped me in my role in supporting them, and being able to work along WSU Tech, who still has teachers in the classroom every day, to continue to stay relevant and look for how do we continually improve this as it shifts, right, to different groups of students, different types of schools that are really asking for the same thing that it started with for us at WSU Tech, which was industry saying, I think we have a problem.
Yeah,
right?
15 years ago.
Yeah.
15 years ago. I mean, think about all the time. So a lot of people watching this may not really understand the real partnership that Mike Rowe Works Foundation and Mike Rowe and WSU Tech have. And so talk about that, like what role that the college is playing in this, and talk about the national rollout of this work ethics curriculum across the United States.
Absolutely. So, WSU Tech has always played a critical role in this. Really started back in 2019 with the development of the curriculum. It was developed in collaboration with WSU Tech. And really, that was the first pilot school. So we learned a lot of information very early on about how it could be effective, what needed to change to make it more effective, which is so important in a pilot phase. But they also, that continues today, but it also is important to keep somebody in the classroom and keep it relevant and keep that collaboration going, which WSU Tech still continues to do today, 5 years later. Almost 6 years later since this whole thing started. Not only that, but they provide excellent, great support around the schools that are implementing across the nation. So it really is a hub of success support that occurs right here in Wichita at WSU Tech, and it branches to, multiple states across the country, and really different types of education programming. All kind of goes back to providing, what is necessary for the school to find the greatest level of success. And it really started with understanding how it works at WSU Tech.
So there are lots of different work ethic curriculums out there.
Yeah.
I was at WDI last week, and they've got this and this and this. I mean, there's a lot of them.
There's a lot.
And we worked with several of them. You and I did before we kind of landed here.
Oh, absolutely.
So what's so special about this work ethic curriculum versus all the rest of them that are out there on the platforms?
Great question. I think what makes this so different and effective is the fact that it uses real experiences from people who have real work experience, right? Not only does Mike share his own personal experiences and that of dirty jobbers, but every teacher that is providing the instruction for this curriculum, they are able to provide their own level of experience that really helps connect students that might be lacking that to really understand why is this important and how will it benefit me, right, along the way. Not only that, but we try to have fun with it, right? And not all curriculum is structured to be fun, just to provide the information necessary for students. And so, they get to build on those experiences as they go, which, helps them find a greater level of success towards the end.
So when they finish this, they get a badge.
They end with a certificate.
A certificate. They get a certification that has Mike Rowe work ethics on it.
Yes.
Now, Mike Rowe is obviously the biggest advocate for career technical education and bringing the dignity of work back to the United States. Of anybody I know, I mean, he's just, he's tireless, he's powerful, and he's great at it.
Yeah.
When an employer sees that from a student, whether they're from WSU Tech or one of our other partners across the nation, what happens?
A conversation primarily is what happens, but for us, a certificate was a kind of a completion point for students, but more than that, it was a tool for them to have a meaningful conversation to what matches what they need, right? So whether that's in an interview, that's talking with their current employer, whatever the case may be, it allows them to provide evidence of something that they did, but give them, the proper tools to have a meaningful conversation that is going to be aligned with what workforce is ultimately looking for in the first place, right? So as they work through those completions, that's an important conversation to have in the classroom is like, how do I use this now, right? And certainly something that we provide a lot of support around with the teachers across the nation is, now what, right? I have this, now what do I do? Now, when an employer sees that, they should be curious.
They
right?
should. It should be a value-added benefit to that particular person's resume, portfolio, whatever they're presenting. Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So how do you keep the curriculum relevant? Because, there's all different generations going through the workforce.
Yeah.
Everybody needs this. I used to teach it, and I always learned something. So how do you keep this relevant? And then the other question is, as we're seeing more high schools being interested in integrating this curriculum, how do you speak to that differently maybe?
Yeah, I definitely think because so much of this is contingent on the discourse that happens in the classroom, the conversation is so important, right? It's very discussion rich. It leans on students' current understanding and then kind of builds from there. So to stay relevant with all the groups, you really have to be in tune with your students, right? Have real conversations, have a lot of them, but then also have an ear on what the expectations are because they change too. Not a lot very quickly, but they certainly do change. And so having an understanding of that and bringing it into the classroom is going to be really beneficial to students, but allowing them the opportunity to share, right? Bring real life challenges into the classroom, solve them together. Continue building on what they know. So if I'm in a technical classroom like at WSU Tech, I'm in a welding classroom, then the examples I use are going to be tied to their industry, right? The experience that I have is going to be tied to something that they can connect with, whether they have grown in their experience in the classroom or they have got to see it in their own instructors, their technical instructors. They'll have some level of understanding, leaving that conversation about, now how do I use this, right? How do I tailor it to me? Because that's an important piece too. We're not all going to be exactly the same.
That's right.
Which also is what makes this very effective, right? Is because we can fill the gaps that we have with our own challenges. And they don't all look the same, right? Every student is going to require something a little bit different. So there's a lot of flexibility in the curriculum.
So there's four primary tenets to this.
Yes.
Speak to those.
Yes. So work ethic, personal responsibility, delayed gratification, and a positive attitude. I always like to think that these are the four things you want students to have top of mind all the time.
No matter what the profession.
No matter what the profession is, right? While Mike is an excellent spokesman for skilled trades, it's not limited to that, right? So if I'm thinking about a positive attitude on a regular basis, then I can integrate the tools that I've developed through the curriculum to really align with what that means, which I would have just spent time learning about.
So those are like in every industry, those four things. So
Yeah.
students that have gone through this, give me 3 or 4 words that you consistently hear from students.
Yeah. Perspective shift is probably the number one thing that I've heard. Or another one that comes up a lot is, and it sounds bad at first, but it's really not when you have that conversation with the student, as they said, it turns out I'm the problem, right? And it comes from a place of they didn't have their focus on the right things, and they might be focusing on things like that are outside their control, which they can't do anything about. And so it brings it back to them, and it allows them to be in the driver's seat. And so much of the feedback at completion is centered around that piece. Now I have control, so I can do something about it that is meaningful and going to be productive when I walk into the world of work.
So the last time I checked, there were 65 plus schools across the nation that are implementing Mike Rowe work ethic curriculum. Over 6,600 certifications that have been given. And we're going to get to what this year together?
Yeah, so we have some goals this year centered around making sure that we stay continually relevant, right? Continuous improvement has to be a part of this, or it won't be useful anymore. So that's kind of priority number one for 2025. But ultimately, supporting schools that are excited about it, that have a shared belief in work ethic alone. But, I definitely think that it would be very easy for us to get to, 75 this year.
Perfect. Let's push for 100.
Yeah. Always shooting
Always
high,
shooting high. Always shooting high.
We also want to make sure we can support them
Yes, we
effectively
do.
along the way. So that has to be a consideration, but certainly making sure that what they receive as a product that they're investing in, time, energy, is worthwhile.
And our role in all of this is to work. I mean, we have this honor to work with Mike Rowe and Mike Rowe Works Foundation to be their partner to help take this important issue and education across the nation through Train the Trainers, through the development of the learning management system that we coordinate and we handle here locally. So we love our partnership. I love the evolution of your career with this. And I can't thank you enough for all you have done at WSU Tech and continue to do at WSU Tech while you're at Mike Rowe Works. And this is so important, and it continues to be really important. And when we don't have to talk about this anymore, that will be great. When everybody knows how to not only get the job, but how to keep that job.
Kind of looking at it through the lens of, two things. One, I think it's such a privilege to be able to come from WSU Tech and now represent the Mike Rowe Works Foundation and have a great understanding of what happens. It helps the collaboration out. It's very exciting because I'm excited about the work happening at WSU Tech along with all of my colleagues at the Mike Rowe Works Foundation. But, beyond that, working myself out of a job would be great, right? Because then it's solving the issue.
Solving the problem.
That's exactly right.
Thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for tuning in to Tech Talk with WSU Tech. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And until next time, stay connected and keep exploring the incredible work happening here at WSU Tech.